Welcome to Intuitive Astrology with Molly McCord. Thank you so much for joining me today, as this is a Wednesday podcast episode for December 10th, and we're going to discuss the current astrology transits as they are unfolding right now through an intuitive spiritual lens. The intention of this podcast is to assist you in trusting yourself more, hearing the messages that are coming through for you, feeling stronger in your choices, your light, and your power, so that you can move through your world with a greater connection to your own divinity and the cosmic energies swirling all around us. So as this show goes live, we have Neptune stationing direct on December 10th at 29 degrees of Pisces. Now, we've been talking about this for a while, and I do have some separate videos for you on YouTube discussing the significance of this station direct for Neptune. And it is a big deal because it's the last call, final chapter. The credits of the film are starting to roll. The ending of a movie is really occurring with this transit. And Neptune is going to move through the final degree and minutes of Pisces until January 26th. So we only have about 7 or 8 weeks of this energy before we start to move into the beginnings that we sampled earlier this year. So this is a time to really listen to what's coming up for you, because this is very introspective, reflective energy. There might be some things you're seeing in hindsight. There could be some emotions coming up within you that you've been repressing or holding back. And this would be a time to trust the wave of release, to trust what's ready to move through you, because Neptune in Pisces at 29 degrees is the final wave that ultimately can cleanse you, release you from something, and provide relief. Deep forgiveness is possible here. Clear peace may be something you're feeling. An opportunity to accept your journey, your experiences, your lessons for what they are may also bring about a deeper connection to your soul and the wisdom that you've been traveling with, that maybe you're feeling at a deeper level now. And I do feel that this Neptune stationing direct in Pisces aligns with the energy of the wood snake of this year, which has been about our internal transformations, what we've had to understand about ourselves and our journeys at a very deep level, but it's been private, hidden, all part of the ongoing conversation between you and your soul, or you and your divine self. So this is a time to look at how powerfully you've changed from inside and how that's then affecting your overall energy field and even your aura. This energy certainly relates to the crown chakra, and you might feel and recognize how much your intuition has expanded this year and how much you have trusted a blind path, especially since Neptune entered Pisces back in 2011. So there is a culminating energy here. Again, it's the peak of a wave or the top of an ascension cycle that then carries us forward into the next cycle. But this is going to be a period of time where you're more fully integrating what those lessons have been. This energy is also going to be strong for the upcoming Sagittarius new moon at 28 degrees of Sagittarius, conjunct the galactic center, no less, on December 19th. And so this is actually a time period where we are meant to expand and elevate beyond our human experiences, and to remember what we're also calling down into our everyday awareness that gives us a higher meaning about this time period. So it's a merging of your soul wisdom with your human knowledge, and that's part of how the Pisces energies work, is that they are about what takes us higher and lifts us up outside of the human experience. We grasp onto that knowledge. We understand deeper spiritual principles and meaning, what the energetics have been, including, of course, the healing path, the karmic lessons, the transitions, what you've had to let go of because it no longer aligns with your frequency. But then after we go up into those higher realms, Pisces is also the energy that brings us back down to the planet, back down to Earth, so that we can walk with that integrated wisdom. So this is certainly going to be a big theme as we move into 2026. And it does align with Saturn also in the late degrees of Pisces here, providing a stabilizing force of what that really means for you. I feel that the Saturn in Pisces wants us to feel stronger in our spiritual knowledge, wants us to be ready to rebirth ourselves and begin anew based on a new cycle that begins in 2026. Yet we have to truly honor the dedication, diligence, and commitment that's been required over the past 30 years. And that is a Saturn cycle, the past 30 years. So there's deep integrations happening now, and you might find that you need more time alone. You're seeking more peace. You want to have space to listen, to be in your own energy, to not have more external intrusions or distractions. And if so, that might be a beautiful gift to give yourself. Now, we are in Sagittarius season, and as I've mentioned in some other episodes here, we have a strong influence of mutable signs right now. So not only do we have Neptune, Saturn, and the North Node in Pisces, but we also have planets moving through Sagittarius, the Sun, Mars, Venus, and soon Mercury. Mercury re-enters Sagittarius on December 11th. And so this is a very mystical time. There is wonder to look at. There is magic to behold. This is a time when those Piscean and Sagittarian energies are asking you to dance higher, to trust where the energy is flowing and taking you to, and to allow yourself to follow those inspirations. And so when I see the strong influence of Pisces and Sagittarius energies, we are looking at our human divinity and what it means to honor our own belief systems and spiritual growth path with renewed trust, unbreakable hope, and relentless faith in what is possible for you next. And I'm saying next because we have to honor that there is a big turning point of energies unfolding that could have left you exhausted, fatigued, confused, overwhelmed, etc. Now there is a surge of energy arriving that helps you see the bigger picture and to recalibrate your own mindset and belief systems with some of the higher universal spiritual laws. The universe has a very deep intelligence, and we are a part of that intelligence and of those energetic systems. And the more that we align ourselves with that wisdom, the more that we are working with these universal forces and continuing to learn, which is definitely a Sagittarius word as we move forward. So overall, this energy could feel very uplifting and ungrounded. You could have some wild adventures in other realms, a lot of astral travel happening, perhaps some very vivid images and messages coming through, perhaps from other timelines, other planets, other dimensions. There's a lot going on that reminds us how multidimensional we are, and that you can trust that. You can trust your own multidimensional abilities and access to these other realms that require our frequency to match them. So basically, I am feeling that we're being pushed into an up-leveling at this time, and there could be a squeeze you're feeling. There could be some pressure that you're sensing about what you have to rearrange and adapt in order to move through this particular phase of it. Now, a part of that is showing up with Venus and Sagittarius squaring the nodes of fate. This is exact on Wednesday, December 10th, and there might be some financial choices you're looking to make. Some things are coming up that you're considering, is this in alignment with my current values? How much do I want this? Does this lift me up and give me hope, or does this feel like a heavy burden? So this could, of course, show up in terms of gift giving or things that you need to take care of financially at this time. Venus in Sagittarius is optimistic, fun-loving, adventurous. She's here for a good time. And so it's easier to spend more with Venus in Sagittarius. And as she squares those nodes of fate, you might want to rein it in and look at, is this worth it? Do I want to spend this much on this gift, on this experience, on this endeavor? Or would it be better to hold back a bit and do a little less? And Venus in Sagittarius, she struggles with doing less, but that is something that's coming up here as she squares the nodes of fate, because yes, that credit card bill will show up most likely in January. And so you're also wanting to look at the future and what you're doing now, and if it's truly an investment for your long-term priorities and values. Mars in Sagittarius is also experiencing squares into next week, as he just had an exact square to Saturn in Pisces at 25 degrees and is approaching a square to Neptune in Pisces at 29 degrees. This slows down Mars's mojo. This actually extinguishes his grand plans and requires there to be more options, more adaptability, to not just take off doing something, but to ensure that it's aligned with his intuition and his soul guidance. And that would be one of the higher interpretations of Mars and Sagittarius squaring both of these planets in Pisces, is that even though you could be very motivated, very excited, and feel that Sagittarius expansive quality coming up that's moving Mars along, there is something to really consider and listen to internally, and to make sure that this is what aligns with your intuition, and it's not just repeating a pattern or a cycle. It isn't something operating at a deeper unconscious level within you, because those Pisces energies are often hidden. And with this square, something is meant to come to your awareness, so you're not repeating a pattern, and you're understanding how to learn from it and approach this endeavor in a new way. So Mars moving slowly this week, you could feel it physically. You could physically feel that you are heavier, slower. Maybe you're fighting a cold. Maybe there's something going on at work, or you're sensing that people's overall energy is not as energetic as normal. And that is another effect with this Mars making squares to planets in Pisces, is that we have less energy. So don't overcommit. Don't fill up that calendar. Give yourself more rest and more reflection time is part of the message. And that will also help you maintain a steadiness that Mars can struggle with in Sagittarius. Now, Mars does enter Capricorn on Sunday, and I'll be discussing that more in Friday's podcast episode. But that's where Mars is renewed, is more commanding and stronger, and is going to know exactly what to tackle and what to take on. And then the other strong energy right now is Mercury. And Mercury is still in the shadow territory of his retrograde. Of course, Mercury is now direct, and Mercury is opposing Uranus retrograde in Taurus at 28 degrees, then trines Neptune in Pisces, and then re-enters Sagittarius. So we have a fast-moving Mercury who is moving ahead and having some realizations around what he had to deeply process back in November and how a new awareness has changed him. Intense processing was a part of that Mercury retrograde journey, but now there is a deeper understanding of what aligns, what is intuitively accurate for you, and what you can move towards that perhaps looks and feels different now because your perception has changed. Maybe a lot more information has come through or been revealed. Maybe more facts have been presented that were previously hidden. It's almost like if everything was covered up in a web of lies and lots of manipulation, that doesn't last for long in these higher frequencies. In fact, it all collapses and the truth rises and the truth comes to the forefront that was previously hidden. This also pertains to projections, where others project things onto you or onto others. And chances are, with every projection, they're just talking about themselves. They're just describing who they really are. And it's basically a mirroring effect where accusations are confessions. And that is something that has certainly been unfolding here, where the truth remains. It's solid, it's clear, it isn't jolted or diminished. It stands strong because there's nothing to explain. There's nothing worthwhile to address. The truth always rises, and that's part of what this Mercury is moving into as Mercury re-enters Sagittarius on December 11th. So Mercury is still in retrograde territory until December 17th. And in this retrograde territory, we are cleaning up, figuring things out, realigning priorities and what to do on a daily basis that matters, especially taking you forward. And so you could find that you are still sorting through things, getting caught up, maybe wanting to cross more off your to-do list before you leave for a holiday break or before the end of the year. Whatever the case may be, you could feel like you're still in that catch-up period. And then the energy is new for Mercury once Mercury gets to 8 degrees of Sagittarius, December 17th and December 18th. We've had this ongoing opposition between Mercury in Scorpio and Uranus in Taurus that has brought up more financial matters for many of us in terms of not only the holiday season, but what we are moving into next year with the economy, jobs, industries drastically changing because of the incoming technologies, changes in spending patterns and habits, and how we've never been here before in this type of economy exactly. And that's because perhaps you've heard that right now we're in a K-shaped economy. A K-shaped economy is when the top or upper arm of the K is rising, and that would be the wealthy getting wealthier. But then the lower part of the K that's declining represents more of the masses and how the masses are experiencing a decline in job opportunities, purchasing power, the ability to save or pay off credit cards. In other words, there are sharp discrepancies here as one group is moving up and a bigger group is moving down, which is a very powerful divergence that's happening in the economy. Now, this K-shaped economy started back in 2020. It started when many of us had to stay at home to work. More remote workers were able to keep their jobs, therefore keeping their salaries. And then a huge sector of people were not. So it started 5 years ago. And I was thinking about how not only do we know astrologically that was going to happen with that Saturn-Pluto conjunction in Capricorn in January, but then also how Uranus and Taurus was shaking up our resources, our daily needs, our ability to create or make a reliable income, etc., etc. I know we don't have to go back in time. You remember that probably still very vividly. But this is where we're at right now. And this is what I'm getting at that I've been thinking about is how I feel that this K-shaped economy that we're moving through is deeply related to the collective timeline split and frequency gap that's showing us where old systems are cracking open so that new energies can come through and emerge. But it also is difficult, of course, because it's working with our survival needs, our self-reliance, our ability to look at, well, what can I maintain and sustain? This is Uranus returning to Taurus here, providing more disruptions, more things that are not certain or not reliable. But I feel it's part of this ongoing theme of this decade that's leading us into new Earth values where we are seeing not only splits in the collective and in ourselves, but I feel that there are openings in this K-shaped economy that we're at for the first time ever. So yes, we can obviously note that the incoming AI influences are permanently and drastically changing our experiences on the planet, deeply affecting how we make a living, the jobs we have, how we create a stable foundation for ourselves, and how that is changing underneath our feet. But I feel that part of what is cracking open here is that we're going to see more shifts in our collective self-worth, in valuing our human capabilities, in embodying what we require that supports us. I feel this can be a commanding energy that is based on new levels of soul power that isn't just about finances, money, wealth. I feel there's this energetic split here that's inviting us to look at where is our own energy sinking with the old earth dissolving. So going back to that K-shaped economy visual, what parts of you are meant to fall away with the old earth values? What parts of yourself were built up on those old values, old systems, patterns, and determination of your worth? And you're realizing that's not me anymore. I am more than that. I am more powerful. I am more evolved. I am ascending higher. I am more aware of what I want and what I require. And so I feel that each of us is moving through this elevation in our self-worth around what we are here to uniquely contribute, build, and develop that is, yes, moving us into new territory that we've never been in before, shaking up our foundation, what we thought would always be reliable or solid, but instead bringing our attention to our own individual K-shaped energy here of what do I need to let go of in order to rise higher and move into more self-love, self-worth, self-confidence that is based on my determination, not any external factors. And I think that's part of what this current economic environment is inviting us into. And I understand it's not that simple. And I understand that there are very practical, real-world concerns at play. So I'm certainly not wanting to diminish any of that stress or worry if that's what you're moving through and if you're feeling that. But instead, I wanted to offer another perspective at an energetic, spiritual level, that this is where we are allowing our old values to be removed because it's time to move forward into that higher inclining arm of the K-shaped graph and to look at what can I approach in myself that is inherently wealthy, prosperous, abundant, successful, joyful, and guiding me forward into a new version of my life. There's upgrades at hand, but they are uncomfortable upgrades. They also expose what we no longer need or want. They expose what isn't working in the systems, whether that is corruption, greed, bad ethics, poor leadership. Now we have to give that to ourselves. We have to claim it and rise with it. And I feel that's been a big push this decade especially. And again, a territory we've never been in. It can reveal too our unconscious scarcity programs, the parts of ourselves that have felt I'm not enough, I can't do this on my own, I have to compete to survive, others have more, I'm always behind. Any of those messages could be coming through loud and strong during this really big time of change so that you could see it for what it is and then choose to elevate it, choose to see it as an opportunity to move in a new direction, to reprogram these belief systems and to embody more of your inherent worthiness. And this is certainly happening at a collective level, but you have to be conscious enough of the energies to see it in a new way, to detach from, again, the K-shaped economy perspective and see it as, no, I'm going to choose that this timeline shift that's happening for me is actually exactly divinely timed for what my soul wanted to move towards during this decade. And so as the old timelines collapse, we then have more energy for the higher timelines that are creative and intuitive systems that allow us to move into new ways of living our lives that are going to look and feel very different, especially in the next number of years of this decade. So I guess at a core level, one of the main shifts here is that our collective understanding of what it means to be human is changing. It doesn't just have to be about survival. it can be lighter, more abundant, more easy and flowing and optimistic. Not to say there aren't things that are difficult or that you don't have your bills to pay. Absolutely, of course, we all do. But there is a collective shift that's occurring in what it means to not only survive, but to enjoy this next phase of our human journey. But that's a choice. And that's a choice we each individually make. And that's a choice that we continue to practice by putting in the actions and behaviors that support it. So that is a big part of what we're moving into here in the second half of this decade. And then just to mention again, I am doing a live presentation on Saturday, December 13th, discussing more of these kinds of things, how we are ascending between eras and what that means at a realistic level, what you want to mentally understand in terms of where we're headed as a collective, things you want to emotionally prepare for as our values change and as we have different expectations and different needs that are going to come to the forefront that have already been coming through and presenting themselves. So I'll be sharing more about that on Saturday. I'm going to be covering the astrology, human design, galactic frequencies, and collective consciousness energies. So yes, it is jam-packed full of information, but I hope that it helps ground you into what are the best choices for you right now, knowing what's going to be unfolding over the next 5-10 years. So this is going to help you be in alignment with what to do now, or at least what to have on your radar as the world continues to change in very significant ways. This was a presentation that I was guided to do from my Galactic Council guides. It came about very quickly and very unexpectedly, but I kind of love that. I move like that. So I trust that this is divinely timed for all of us. I'll put the details about that below the podcast if you want to check it out. And also, before I sign off for today's show, I want to extend a thank you to each of you who listen to this podcast. It is a joy to move through these energies with you, to discuss them, to support you, and hopefully validate you in exactly what you are moving through. And I also wanted to share that I got this message from Spotify that this podcast had won 3 awards this year based on their data. It is a 2025 marathon show, a 2025 talked about show, and a 2025 most shared show. And each of these awards came from this podcast being discussed, shared, and talked about more than 99% of other shows. So that blows my mind. I don't know that data. I don't even know what's going on with some of the data throughout the year. So definitely a surprise, but mostly just a thank you to you that you choose this podcast and that you make time to listen to this podcast amongst all of your busy life priorities and what you have going on. And I just want to thank you sincerely. And I'm excited to move into 2026 with you, where it's going to be a very different year. It's going to have some very different frequencies, especially the second half of the year. So know that it's not a repeat of this year. Yes, there will be some things that extend into 2026 as we move away from them and finalize what we've been journeying through. But overall, 2026 is going to be leading us into brand new experiences and some pivotal starting points. So we will keep discussing that, of course, on this show. I will be back on Friday with a new podcast episode for you. As many of you are aware, I have shifted the format of the show, where now there are new episodes for you every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. They are shorter episodes, although they're not really that much shorter, maybe just 10 minutes or 15 minutes shorter, but I hope they give you more to connect with and digest that also validates what you're feeling in the now. So thank you as always for joining me. I look forward to connecting with you again on Friday. Wishing you a beautiful journey here through the middle of the week. Take good care, and I'll see you back here soon.